they don't tell us when you ever want to get into any kind of leadership role is you have to, must make the call or have the meeting or have the discussion that you're scared to have right then and there immediately. And it's intentional that it says scared because that's what we are. And you can say you do it all the time, but you'll be lying because we've seen it. Everybody, including myself, has gone through their career at some point in time or even lately where you see something happening, possibly at work, and you're just had enough and you just don't want to have it, or you don't want to have a conversation because you know that it's going to be confrontational. But we have all gone through this. But the thing that we must do is kind of lean into that and know that we have to have that conversation right then and there. A trick that I use is that I think of it as like a disservice. If I don't correct somebody, not like I'm looking always to correct somebody. So it's not like I'm rolling around thinking that I know everything and that I'm the boss and I'm a manager or I'm a leader and that I should be correcting everyone. But if there are things that are, for example, unsafe, or things that are way off of policy, or things that could hurt us as a team, it's all of our duties to have that conversation, to either pull them in a meeting, pull them aside, have that coaching moment. The mindset for that, to turn that around, is that a trick that I use is that it's a disservice. It would be a disservice to you to let a behavior or an action go for a month-long period, a 2-month-long period, a 3-month-long period, and then we get to a mid-year or towards the end of the year and you find out you're not performing. There's a disservice to the folks that we support and serve in that if they got hurt or did something, the regulations around what we do are there because every regulation that is there in the industry that we're in is there because something went wrong. Every policy, every procedure, every FAA mandate, TSA, it's through experience. And so it would be a disservice to the folks that we support if something were to happen to them, right? So the mindset on that is disservice. If you had a peer or your team lead and a project team lead, why could you shy away from having a tougher conversation immediately?
You're afraid of what they might say back to you.
Absolutely. So the confrontation factor, as we as leaders look at it, there is a fear. There is a fear of that's kind of like like I don't know enough. What are they going to think about me? Is this going to hurt my relationship with them? Are they going to be confrontational? Or even worse, are they just going to shrug me off and it's going to hurt my ego? So there's a lot of fear and uncertainty and doubt around some of that. And you start doubting yourself. You're uncertain of the outcome. And so we skip those, right? We skip some of those tougher conversations. There's also this thing called the law of least effort. Can anybody take a guess what that is? What's the minimum I got to do and just make it through? Essentially boils down to, or what it means in this case is that we're going to go with the path of least resistance. And a lot of times that's just walking by. To not have a lot of those fears, or to not have that fear of having a tough conversation, I might just skip it. What can we do about it? To take action, it's just part of the mindset. For me, and I'll just give you my personal experience, there are some things in there when I know I don't want to do something. I think our last meeting, we talked about when are we most productive. So we know those, right? We know when we're most productive. And so I tend to put the really hard things right up front. And hard is a relative term, but there is never a day here where I'm not like, I got to prepare for this conversation. Not one. There's always a day where I'm like, okay, this isn't like, flowers and roses and rainbows. It's not going to be a tough conversation, but it is going to be a conversation that one requires some thinking and preparation, because it'd be a disservice to any of us if we had that conversation, or any other team if I had that conversation with them. But to combat that, and some reminders for us, is just go for it. You got to take action, and you got to add repetition. And what I mean by that is that deep down inside, if you were honest with yourself right now, that you've when and how and why you might skip having one of these conversations or calls or meetings. And this could be with a family member, this could be at work, this could be with a peer. It doesn't matter. The practice to it is just immediately lean into it, try to take action. The more you repeat this, the less fear and doubt you're going to have. Because if you get into a cycle of like, I'm just going to try, and the first couple times, whatever it is, like the first time you're walking around and you're like, I got to commit to this today, it's going to feel foreign, and it's not going to come out totally 100% right, but all you're trying to do is get 1% better today than you were yesterday, right? So one of the first things that we want to do is really try to focus on catching yourself, catching your mindset right then and there, and just taking action and trying that and being intentional about the day in the day to add repetition to that. One thing that also helps me is that you can make a ritual around this as you go into these conversations, phone calls, or meetings that scare you, that you're not comfortable with. Make it a ritual. Before you go into it, make sure that you have the information. Before you go into that meeting, make sure that you know the policy that you're gonna coach on. The more that you can prepare for these, the more you will be at ease having them, and the easier they will become. It's also a disservice in that mindset already. It's also a disservice not to prepare for some of these. Now, it's not all of them. If you're just making a command decision out in the operation and you want to have a coaching moment, that's great. We can't let those slide either. But if it's something bigger, if it's something that affects somebody's life, that's one of the ones that they don't tell us when we become a leader in any organization. So it might be an expectation, or it might not, because you don't know, right? You've all had leaders too that are like this picture. You're like, wait a minute, you're telling me, right? You've all had somebody in your life that you reported to or something that would always kind of just take the easy way out, the least effort, the law of least effort, and so you get mixed signals there. But as we move into a leadership role, just know that they don't want to tell you, but it's absolutely one of the tough things and expectations that everyone has.